This week's episode is sponsored by NFT Go. They're a platform for giving you all sorts of information on NFT projects to allow you to analyze them in all sorts of ways. And we're going to do a little bit of a demonstration with the Moonbirds project here so you can kind of see what they're offering. So here's the Moonbirds page on NFT Go. And this is the overview page, which is, as you can guess, an overview, but there's just it's kind of crammed with really good data. Yeah, there really is. And you can go over to here like NFT and rarity and see, if you look over here, there's a ton of big sales for the ultra rare stuff, but then there's really not much of a price differentiation at all here for anything between the least rare and stuff that's, 75% of the way to being the most rare stuff. So that's just kind of an interesting thing that, we've seen this in NFTs a lot, is that there's just not a ton of liquidity in the middle rarity stuff unless you're willing to treat it like it's a floor piece. So,
I think we've even mentioned it on the podcast a couple of times, where it's like, generally, if you're buying NFTs, you want to buy like the floor or like the rarest ones.
Right. And this will help you look at if there's any specific projects where maybe there's a little bit more of a slope to this, that it's worth it to kind of hunt in the middle, maybe. But yeah, you can.
Now, what's that holders tab do? Sorry.
Yeah, so you can see here, this is going to give you a nice graph over various time periods. And this project is so new, you can't do something like 3 months, as you can see here. But to give you an idea of how diversified the holders of the project are and which direction it's trending in and stuff like that. And so whales here is another thing that's defined as any address that has over $1 million of NFTs. And you can see stuff here like the holding amount distribution. There's just a lot of great information, and the more you click, the more different things you'll find. Oh, I don't actually know enough about sharing screens to know if that's going to open when I click it. Sorry about that. No. But they also have this research tab over here where they have various articles that they write up themselves. And you can go to whales if you're really interested, looking specifically in what whale wallets are doing and all sorts of stuff. They have a lot.
So much information. It's
a lot of information. Yeah. So pretty much anything that you would possibly want to know to make a decision about buying, selling, listing NFTs. It's a great place that's aggregating data. So, I think I mentioned this previously, but like if you were looking at the breakdown of how many holders there are, that's something that if you go to the contract page on Etherscan, you can kind of find that stuff after clicking through many, many pages of it and stuff like that. But this is just aggregating all of the data from all these sources, and also providing really nice visualizations as well to help you look at it.
Free.
Yep, free to use.
Free.
So definitely check it out.
We we have been doing this for like 40 episodes. This is 41 episodes, and we've been a little reluctant to bring on sponsors or people to sponsor the podcast because we were like, well, we don't want to just shill some random
Lots of NFT projects have been interested in that. But this is the first time that somebody approached us and we went, wow, that's like a tool that I should be using and wasn't aware of, and that we would love to let our listeners know about because it can definitely benefit them.
Yeah, pretty much. It seems like a really great product. It is a great product. We've used it. We use it. So definitely check it out. We'll have all the links in the description below. And enjoy the show.
Yep. Thanks to NFT Go. The hosts of Two Bored Apes are not registered investment advisors. The podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. Nothing said on it should be construed as investment advice.
Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff. Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff.
Welcome to episode 41 of Two Bored Apes. I'm your host, Jamie, and I'm here with my friend and co-host, Roy, who's wagging his head back and forth. Roy, how are you?
I am good, Jamie. I'm full. I'm very, very, very full.
Like, I want to tell the listeners. Roy was telling me how he was having this big food trip before we record, and how he was so full. And then as we were doing our pre-recording, just chit chat and talking about our plans, he starts biting from a croissant.
Yeah, well, I'm in Paris, and when in Rome, when in Paris, you eat croissants. You just,
but even when you're already full after doing a food tour, you're still eating croissants.
Yeah, I mean,
fair enough. Should we just get into the news of the week? There's a lot of stuff that's been happening.
There's a lot to get into, so maybe we don't talk about food.
News of the week. The biggest one to me was the Aku Dreams hack.
Mm-hmm.
That was
huge.
That was huge and crazy. And it was
was it a hack or just a contract malfunction?
Right. Hack is not the right word. It's an own goal, as they would say in soccer, because it was their own fault, as far as I can tell. And also, apparently, lots of devs reached out to them ahead of time, and they didn't seem particularly interested. Although I didn't follow it super closely because it's not a project I was a part of. I only heard about it after the fact, but people definitely seemed to indicate that they did not. I mean, obviously, they didn't take the precautions necessary. Yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. But it seems as though, at least from the tweets I was reading at the time, that there was a level of cockiness and arrogance, as if they didn't need this sort of outside auditing or didn't need to contact the best devs possible or whatever. So why don't you tell people what more specifically happened?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't follow it to the letter either, but from my understanding, so Aku Dreams is a project that has been around for a long time, I think, over a year. They've been dropping these comics, I think on Nifty Gateway, or maybe like a hybrid Nifty Gateway and somewhere else. But they recently released, or said that they're going to release a PFP collection, 15,000 PFPs. And they airdropped mint passes to anyone, I think, who had a comic. I think there were like 10K mint passes. And then there were going to be 5K avatars sold by a Dutch auction, where anyone who had a mint pass would get one for free or something like that. And then these were like trading at a pretty high price. The mint passes were going for like between 3 and 4 ETH before the drop. And the Dutch auction, I want to say it was starting at 5 ETH and dropping. Anyway, what ended up happening was that during the Dutch auction, there was another element to it. Basically, if you had a mint pass, and you minted from the Dutch auction, basically you were eligible for a 0.5 ETH discount on any that you minted.
Yeah, like a refund. And like this is where a lot of the issues came from.
Yeah. So then basically it became apparent, I don't know if it was during the auction or once it was over, when people started trying to claim their refunds. I think it just wasn't working. And then the team sort of started looking into it, and I think there were like 2 or 3 bugs or glitches or things that were wrong in the smart contract. The first was sort of made, someone reached out to the team, was like, hey, there's this bug or glitch or whatever. And I think that's the one that they sort of dismissed and didn't really look into. And then, and this wasn't a malicious person. It was like a white hat bug finder who ended up, I think, working with the team to fix it or undo whatever the thing was. But it sort of resulted in a secondary bug or glitch, which made it due to some like counting error or number error.
So it had something to do with the team itself can't take F out of the contract until all those refunds are paid. And the refunds had to be paid basically in order of request, something to that effect. And there was basically an error in the code about the counting. And so it basically just got locked, and nobody was able to get their refunds. So they couldn't get their money out. And then the team wasn't able to get their money out because all the refunds hadn't been paid yet. So there's literally 11,500, a little bit more than that, 11,555 or something Ether, which is about $34 million, just locked in this smart contract forever. That can't be touched. Nothing, you can't do anything with it. It's not like, people lost the seed phrases or whatever. It's like you can control it, but the contract is up there and there's just no way to get the money out of it.
Yeah, you can't go back and change a smart contract. That's not how they work. They're immutable. That's the beauty and the bane of smart contracts in Ethereum.
But a lot of the times that you think of money in crypto that's sort of lost forever, it's because people lost access to the wallet itself, which is not the
Yeah.
case here. You know,
In
and you
this
hear
case,
people
yeah.
digging up for their hard drive in old what do you call them?
Dumps.
Yeah,
Tips. Yeah.
Tips.
Yeah, that's what we call it.
Wow, I've never heard
we use in
that.
Australia, a tip. Yeah.
I was
don't know why
thinking
it's called
landfill was the word I was looking for.
that. That's a very American way to call it, I think. We call it a dump or a tip.
Dump we also use.
Yeah. But
Junkyard, maybe.
It's gone. 11,500-ish ETH. Just vanished out of the ecosystem basically forever. The team has done an excellent job, I think, of owning it. And they were like, yes, you know, we done goofed. We screwed up.
Yeah.
Sorry. We're going to build brick by brick. And a lot of the community was sort of really supportive of them, saying, you know,
I saw a lot of that for sure.
We will forego our refund. Like, we don't need money. Just, you know, get back on your feet. But they were like, you know, no, we promised a refund. We're going to dip into our treasury from all of the comic sales and royalties over the last year and just use our own money or whatever the treasury to repay people. And then presumably, like, they have all these plans for a PFP project and I guess a metaverse and whatever story. That has taken a big hit because now they have less funding to do it. But
yeah,
you know,
and also I would assume just a bit less confidence in general from the NFT ecosystem. But you know,
definitely. But I think it's also a case of so many more people are aware of them now, whereas before it was like, what is this project? Yeah,
right. And you know, if they use the huge fuck up to their advantage in terms of learning from their mistakes, and you know, so you're saying that they were kind of owning it and the people were supportive. I definitely saw that. But what I saw more from the team itself, and again, this wasn't something I looked into super deeply, but from what I saw on Twitter was them basically just not shying away from it and being very confident that they're going to stick around and continue to try working on these things. Less of a straight on admission of we messed up this specific thing by not being careful enough. They weren't getting so much into the weeds on that, but maybe there's going to be a postmortem later where they really get into that kind of thing. But you know, so much of that is like technical stuff that's above the heads of most of the people that are going to read the tweets anyway. Yeah. And what they wanted to convey is that, like, yes, we did fuck up, but we're not just, you know, putting our tail between our legs, and I couldn't think of the expression, and running. You know, we're still in this for the long run, even though we botched this and are out a lot of money.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, you know, how they proceed from here and if they're still around in a year or two. Yeah. The floor price of the avatars, they got revealed a few days ago, I think, and they traded between like 2 to 3 ETH for a while, and they've dropped now to 1.5 or something.
All the medium-sized projects seem to be dropping.
Yeah,
which is sort of a theme that we've gone over a lot. Is that just so much succeeds? So much of the success in general, I should say, in NFTs is concentrated very much at the top, and then there's, you know, a handful of stuff at the bottom that kind of makes a nice leap, and then there's just a lot of stagnation in the middle where it's really hard to make that jump, but it's quite easy to make that negative slide.
Yeah. I guess that one of the other items on news of the week was Moonbirds, and that sort of took an enormous amount of just attention and liquidity and money from the entire market. Sort of before the launch, people were like pooling the ETH because they needed 2.5 ETH for the raffle, and then afterwards, the floor went to like 42 ETH in a week, in 5 days or something. Yeah, which is. I mean,
they practically flipped punks in a week. You know, like they were 3 days away from flipping punks in a week, which is amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, if you look at like the graphs of, you know, it's kind of over and over, and it keeps happening to a higher degree. Like I remember stuff like on One Force, like the speed with which it went up, and then like Hape Prime. And it was like, wow, that's even faster. And then you had Doodles, it's even faster. And then Azuki, that's even faster. And now Moonbirds has just taken it to a whole new level. But I don't know if you saw the floor price chart of like days versus floor price of, I saw one that was Apes, Azuki, and Moonbirds, and it was so crazy.
Yeah,
I took
did see that.
120 days, and then 40 days, and then like 3 days.
And in terms of
just
like
amazing.
Overall secondary market volume, it has done more than Meebits, more than Doodles, more than Cool Cats, more than World of Women, more than Art Blocks Playground. It has done, let's see, half the secondary market volume of Art Blocks Curated, which is
and it's been out for
astonishing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Hopefully some of our listeners got in on some of this as we had that special episode with Kevin and Ryan to talk about it before the drop. I did not, which was a bummer because they did so well, but that's okay. That's the nature of the NFT space. I entered the raffle, but I didn't get picked.
We can talk about Ryan leaving. I guess that's
a thing.
He, I guess in the last day or two has been, I think 2 days ago he announced a fund that he's launching, an NFT investment fund,
right?
Which is very, what's the word? He's trying to do it very like legitimately in the terms of like there's 99
legality or whatever.
Yeah, you have to KYC, minimum investment. There's fees that he's going to be taking, and that was kind of out of left field, I think, for a lot of people. Now, looking back and having read more, it's apparent he had mentioned this and spoken about this much earlier, and people like within proof or
people were like super upset about it in a way that seemed way disproportional to what it was.
I think it was a culmination of like several days of poor tweets by him, where he was just consistently tweeting about
tweeted about the floor, which people didn't like so much and stuff.
He had bought a bunch of rare moonbirds and stuff like that, which was people were uncertain about and the optics weren't great. And then he apologized for tweeting about the floor, and then he did it again, and then this announcement, and then people were like, "But you're the CEO, the most successful NFT project of all time, and now you're launching a fund. Where's your attention? Are you focusing on both?" The optics weren't good, and basically now he's stepping down as COO and focusing on the fund. And Kevin announced that he's going full time on Proof, which I guess his time in Proof's been split between his VC, True Ventures,
right? Because he sort of said that basically where Moonbirds got to is something that he sort of thought it would, but that it would take literally years. And the fact that it did it so quickly means he has to kind of adjust how much of himself he was planning on putting into it.
Yeah, which makes sense. And it's just so crazy and indicative of how insane the space is. Because if we go back a month ago, no one even heard of Moonbirds, and they were talking about how they were expecting it to sell at Dutch auction at like 1.5 ETH.
Yeah.
And they had to change and pivot that to say, all right, just a raffle because the demand is crazy. And then now, it went to a 42 ETH floor. I think it's back to 26 or 27 now, which is still insane. But it
very
was
insane.
A full-time commitment from Kevin plus additional hiring. I think Ryan also said I don't know how much of this was like his initial thinking or just in response to everything that happened, but like he was not feeling like he was in a position to handle the CEO role of a project this enormous, and it might need someone who's more experienced at scaling, which makes a lot of sense, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the Proof Collective was 1,000, and it was it's a different beast than a profile picture project. And then when you add that, you go, okay, well, if it's going to be at all like we've ever seen, like every other project except Apes or whatever, that's one thing. But the speed with which it hit the levels it did meant like this, it looks like the community expects this to be something else, Yeah. Just a cut above the rest or whatever.
Yeah. It's just so wild. Like, unprecedented. There's no other word for it. We thought Azuki was like just unprecedented and absurd.
And it was.
It was, and it just leapfrogged Azuki.
Yeah.
In a matter of days. But I mean, it's only been 10 days or something. What's it been, a week and a half since it's come out? It's peaked at 42. It's dropped quite a lot. Maybe it'll keep dropping. Maybe it'll go to 15 or 10. Or
well, I mean, we'll get into this a little bit in the Bored Ape Yacht Club segment, but there's another big source of liquidity or suck of liquidity, I should say, I guess, coming up on April 30th with the Otherside NFTs. So perhaps that'll be another reason for
Draining
people to be
everything.
selling stuff.
Yeah.
We had a couple more things for news of the week though that we just wanted to touch on. Looks Rare added Looks Rare being an NFT marketplace that I think most of our listeners know about. Has so much great stuff going on for it, but it's had a lot of trouble getting liquidity because of just basically there's just the habit that people have of going to OpenSea, listing on OpenSea. And so, because the sellers are there, the buyers are there, and because the buyers are there, the sellers are there. And then so it's been tough for them to get that traction. So they basically added a reward system for listing your NFTs, and I believe it's any of the top 20 projects. And as long as you're listing it within, I think, 50% of the current floor price, you'll get these rewards. And so that's encouraged a lot of people to list there, which will encourage a lot of the buyers to go there, and hopefully, for their sake at least, will make it more competitive and take more market share from OpenSea. It's been taking some, consistently growing. I think the last I saw it was maybe at 12% or something, which is not insignificant at all.
That's pretty reasonable. Have you listed any? Do you know what?
I listed my ape actually, which it's been unlisted for probably 6 weeks or something. And I normally like to list it for a price that's almost certain to not sell, but not a total ridiculous meme price. But in order to get the rewards, which is kind of what inspired this, I had to list it a bit lower. I was thinking I wanted to list it for like 220-ish, but I needed to list it for like 191 or less to get the rewards. So I listed it for 190, which is still very unlikely to sell because, it's I would say better than a floor ape in most ways, but it doesn't have any at all super rare traits. And there's just so little difference in the NFT ecosystem these days between, the least rare and the, 25th percentile or whatever.
Yeah.
It's 25th percentile, 25% from the top or from the bottom. Either way, I'm thinking like, if there's 10,000 pieces, the 2,500th, let's say, most rare one is valued barely more than the least rare one. You have to really be in the top 2% of rarity or something to get those premiums. So it seems quite unlikely it'll actually sell.
And so in terms of the rewards you're getting, what do you get paid in looks token?
It's looks. It's looks.
Looks. Do you have an idea how much you're getting like per day?
I actually don't, but I've seen some people tweeting, pretty significant numbers. I assume that they've been listing a lot more NFTs rather. I looked initially at all the projects that qualified, and I didn't really have anything aside from the ape that I could list to get the rewards. So I didn't do anything initially, and then a few days later, I was. It's just another one of these times where the ape floor rose up so significantly so quickly. I was like, you know what? Now is an okay time for me to list it above that floor. And if somebody wants to grab it, I'll just have to take it.
Yeah, fair enough. This sort of segues into the other news of the week item we had, which was OpenSea buys Gem.
Right.
Gem being the marketplace aggregator where a lot of people, myself included, I think yourself included,
I've used it,
go to purchase and even list their NFTs because it would just aggregate all the different marketplaces. OpenSea, Looks Rare, others.
Great for sweeping floors in a single transaction.
I'm really curious because I thought Gem was great for Looks Rare because people who wouldn't go to the Looks Rare to buy would have their purchases scooped up. Now that OpenSea has bought Looks Rare, I actually haven't checked. Bought Gem. I actually haven't checked if they're still supporting Looks Rare.
They are, as far as I know. And I actually saw a couple people sort of slightly FUD tweeting about getting some errors or whatever. And one of the devs at Gem was like, it's funny, but like that error actually existed before, but definitely only people are going to really notice it now.
Yeah.
Which I buy it, but I have not actually used it since the purchase, but I'm very sure that for now, Looks Rare is still on it.
Yeah. Seems like a smart buy from OpenSea, buying Gem.
Yeah, I don't know what they paid or whatever, but definitely seems like a smart buy if the price is reasonable.
Yeah. A lot of features that would be beneficial if they're just integrated into OpenSea. Yeah. The sweep feature, mass listing feature, et cetera, et cetera. Lower gas.
Yeah. That's all we
Yeah.
got though for news of the week, right?
I believe so.
Oh, and the Celtics swept the Brooklyn Nets. That was pretty big.
That's basketball, right?
That is basketball. Very good, Ray.
Uh-huh.
All right. News of the week.
News of the week.
Bored Ape Yacht Club. Well done. We have
Thank you.
4 things listed here for the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
It's been
Which
a
one
good
would
period.
you like? It has, yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on. They're always doing stuff. That Bored Ape Yacht Club.
It's a pretty good project.
And stuff happens around them and within them and from within them and going out and all the directions. The biggest thing, the most immediate thing, I think, is that they announced the NFT drop for the Otherside metaverse thing. Will
we
be
don't know
happening.
what.
Right. They use the word NFTs, and most of the speculation is that it will be land, but we don't know for sure that it's land. And theoretically, it could be like those codas. That's sort of the other somewhat realistic option, I think. But I'm assuming it's land, and we don't know. But yeah, they announced that'll be happening on April 30th, and there's going to be some free mints for ape owners and mutant owners, and the rest of it will be a Dutch auction, and it will be only using ape coin in the Dutch auction to purchase. And you had to do the KYC thing that they, told us all about maybe a month and a half ago or something in order to participate in the Dutch auction. Now, again, if you have an ape or a mutant and you didn't do the KYC thing, you're still going to be able to mint your free ones. But to participate in the Dutch auction and mint from there, you do have to have done the KYC.
That's correct. I think the only additional detail was that any of the ape coin that they will get from the Dutch auction, they said will be locked up for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they're accepting ape. Like, I think I guess based on the initial leak deck, they said they were going to accept ETH. And then I was like thinking in terms of if they're trying to build, they will need ETH, or if they get ape, they're going to have to sell.
But they have a lot of funding. Has been my counter argument to that.
But I guess the idea was if they raise a ton of ape, they're going to eventually want to sell it, and then they're just putting like downward pressure on ape token. But I guess
they don't necessarily
down the road,
right? Yeah. I mean, because
they don't.
They use it for things, right? It gets distributed to stakeholders and all that stuff. Anyway, I think that there's definitely sort of logistical and economic reasons why you might be surprised by it, but I feel like the messaging, as far as what Otherside is, they said the words "powered by ApeCoin" like so many times that it seemed like it only made sense to me that it would be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been sitting here stunned if it was in ETH or both or something like that, but I don't feel surprised that it's in ApeCoin.
It's great for ApeCoin holders and for apes. And
yeah, I'm curious what the mint limit per wallet will be, if there is one, and where the Dutch auction will start and where it will end. And I got so many questions. But also if it'll be sort of one of those true Dutch auctions that we used to know about, where again everybody will only pay the lowest price, or if it'll be the Dutch auctions that is really what we all pretty much see and use in the NFT space, where the price declines, but the early purchasers, the early minters, are actually paying that higher price and aren't actually getting the discount for whatever the lowest price ends up being.
This actually makes me think of something that's back to the news of the week in the Akutar section, because I believe their Dutch auction was a true Dutch auction.
A true one.
We'll refund the difference. Maybe that contributed to the smart contract.
Oh yeah, that might have actually been the refund thing that we were talking about. Yeah.
Anyway, in terms of this one, I'd be curious to see what how they decide to do it. In terms of the KYC requirement for this, do you think? I mean, we still don't know exactly why. Like, people, they don't need to KYC to sell NFTs. Do you think it was just in order to sort of try and get the distribution to as many real humans as possible, rather than bots?
So I think we're going to have to see we just don't know. Obviously, you're asking me what I think, but it'll depend sort of on how many NFTs are they planning on selling, and what the limit is per wallet will really inform, the correct answer to that. I actually do think that it was close to a necessity, and this is just sort of my instincts from it, is that it had something to do with legality. Now that they've got this DAO, now that they've got funding from all these different parties who have their own, legal needs and stuff like that, I'm actually assuming that it has something to do with that, and that some lawyer somewhere that they're listening to is saying, "Hey, you have to do this." And like Animoca Brands, maybe, somewhere in there is where it comes from. I don't know though. But again, yeah, I guess we'll have to see just how many people KYC'd and how many NFTs they're trying to sell to figure out if it actually seems likelier that it's just about getting good distribution or not.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, if you want good distribution, you don't necessarily want to have to force, all these restrictions on people in terms of, because that limits the amount of buyers, but it also obviously theoretically, if there's limits to it, limits the amount that the whales can get, because there's ostensibly theoretically only one wallet per whale, even though, oh, my wife, that kind of thing. There's a lot of people doing stuff like that, I'm sure.
Well, you just start paying people in just wherever.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's lots of ways that people can try and circumvent that, but it does make it a lot harder, obviously.
Yeah. And that's coming in 3 days. It's 27th of April today. Probably 1 or 2 days after when this goes out. We are starting to see I think a liquidity suck, or a lot of projects' floors are tanking, whether it's because of this or something else.
Well, crypto itself is also pulling back a bit, so I'm not sure about where the interaction there. Yeah. Definitely. So that was another thing we had here, is that all the floors of every single part of the ape ecosystem have been hitting all-time highs. The ape floor itself got to like 147F. The mutants got to 41. The dogs got to like 14, and ape coins hitting $19.
Yeah,
it's just booming.
Crazy.
Very crazy.
Yeah,
my mutant sale in January is looking worse and worse every day.
It was looking so good for a while as well.
Yeah, for a very 2 weeks tops, it was nice.
What did you sell it for? 27?
I sold it for 24, I believe. I started listing around 28, and it was kind of, the floor was pulling back, and I was really trying to do it on LooksRare instead of OpenSea, which also slowed it down. But then I think it trickled all the way down to maybe 15 after I sold it, so I was feeling pretty good at that point. But then it came back up, and then the ape coin, and it just big mistake in retrospect at this point, but whatever.
Yeah, life goes on.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to really be too upset about selling a free airdrop for as much as I was able to sell for. I can't actually do that in good conscience.
Yeah. I guess another newsworthy item to do with the Otherside land drop was that I think yesterday or the day before, the Bored Ape Yacht Club Instagram got hacked.
Two days ago, I believe.
2 days ago, someone posted a malicious link to a fake Otherside minting website, and a bunch of people, unfortunately, assumed it was real and legit, and went and signed a malicious transaction and lost assets. Apes got lost, mutants got lost. I think 91 NFTs in total. 2,000 ETH worth is something I remember seeing, which is just so much. That sounds about right.
It was not good. And now they've basically, they said they're investigating it, etc. But they're just not going to use the Instagram account anymore until they get to the bottom of it, and only basically to trust their Twitter.
Which makes sense. Yeah. But even then, it's like, trust their Twitter, double check with their Discord.
You should do all the things.
Yeah, do all the things.
The other thing is, or one of the other things, is that a lot of people are going, why didn't you have two-factor authentication? Why didn't you have two-factor authentication? And they said they did. So it seems possibly like some sort of low-level insider decided to try and make a play that
maybe.
But I mean, I don't know. but it could be that, or it could just be just a more boring sort of phishing where somebody tricked them into basically giving the two-factor authentication information by making them think it was for something else or whatever.
Yeah. There's also I don't know exactly how Instagram's two-factor authorization works, but with Discord at least, there are ways that hackers can bypass it. Basically, this happened with the 333 Club, and we got hacked. Basically, if someone who has access to the Instagram two-factor account drags something to their bookmark folder or installs something or clicks whatever, they can get access to your account just completely bypassing two-factor.
Yeah, there's like executable code within what you're dragging or something.
Yeah, which sucks, but hopefully they get to the bottom of it and tell everyone.
Instagram, owned by Facebook, who I think have a lot of evidence has been quite capable of not taking care of people's data in a totally proficient way. So there's a lot of possibilities for what actually could have been the impetus and the attack vector for this.
Do you think Yuga is going to compensate any of the victims in any way?
They did say to contact them if you were one of the victims. So it seems quite possible. And I think that's always sort of it's one of these things where I think the right thing to do and the smart thing to do are not necessarily the same. Like, it would be very nice of them to do, but obviously when you start to do something like that, you're opening yourself up to people getting sort of fake exploited and then kind of having their cake and eating it too when you pay them for their loss. I'm using air quotes for the people just listening. If it got stolen, air quotes again, by your friend, and now Yuga is going to compensate you for your loss. That's just that really opens you up to getting exploited by another group of nefarious actors.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they end up doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously they very much have the resources to make people good on it. So I guess we'll see. But it's also, this is kind of goes way back to that thing that 6529 talked about the difference sort of between ERC tokens and Bitcoin and stuff like that and NFTs. Like, if there's a deep personal connection that these people had to the NFTs, you can't actually just get it back, even with Yuga's war chest, unless the hackers agree to sell it, because there's only that one. They can't just go, oh, you lost 7 Bitcoin, we'll give you the 7 Bitcoin. It's this specific NFT that's just in this wallet, and they don't have to sell it for anything if they don't want to.
Yep. That's the beauty and I guess I keep saying the beauty and the bane of NFTs, of the non-fungibility of it all.
Right.
Yeah.
And we had one more thing here for the Bored Ape Yacht Club segment, was that the guy Osiri has a proposal for basically being head of marketing for the ApeCoin DAO for a total of, I think the cost was going to be 1% of the yearly budget. I just saw 1%.
1% of, I don't know if it's an ecosystem fund or some bucket of the
1% of something. People seem very on board with it because he's hardworking, smart, super successful at marketing, branding, that kind of thing. So it seems like it's going to pass, but I don't think it's actually an official proposal that's up yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, I had a quick look at it earlier today. I think it sounds pretty great. I think, he's proven
1% is a small number.
Certainly. Small number. The only thing, I guess, that people have a little bit of concern about is that he sort of wants free reign of it. And he says, in order to work best, I need just the freedom to work sort of in privacy, or like without disclosing up beforehand every single aspect, every single deal and stuff. But he did say that he'll post like quarterly transparency reports talking about where the money went and who, like how it got distributed, and that he himself is not going to receive any payment from this work. Now, presumably he has a big fat bag of ApeCoin, so if ApeCoin does well, his incentives are going to do well anyway. But it seems like a good thing all around for us, for Ape. Yeah,
I agree. Anything else? I
Cool.
think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Here's the Bored and Hungry restaurant in LA is not
Yeah.
super new at this point, but I don't think we actually got to talk about it on the podcast.
I don't think we did either.
Um,
What?
that was interesting.
Yeah. So my understanding is it was a pop up. It is a pop up. I don't know if it's still around. They sort of
Right.
overtook an old fast food joint location,
Yeah.
and yeah,
It seems like it was successful enough that they might make it permanent, though. But I did also hear that it was supposed to be a pop up. But the lines were huge. I mean, there's excitement around it, so it could be very much a first day thing. But the burgers look good, although obviously, as our listeners know, not as good as good pizza could ever be, right? Because pizza's better than burgers. A good burger can be good.
A good burger can be really. What's your favorite type of burger?
So, are we talking all the burgers in the world, or like fast food chains?
All the burgers in the world. Like, what do you like on your bun?
Right. I think to me, I think cheese and mustard are mandatory. And beyond that, I have some flexibility in terms of vegetables. I'll have some grilled onions. I'll have tomato. I'll have lettuce. I'll have bacon. But I don't need any of them. But I can't. I literally can't really imagine. Like, what's the point if there's no mustard and no
cheese
But I will say the double animal style, as far as fast food stuff, is my favorite.
That's so good.
It's really
In and out.
fantastic. Yeah. That's one of the things I miss most about Las Vegas, is not being able to get them, because we don't have In-N-Out here. Don't be funny. Don't be funny and try to insult my friends. Or whatever. Yeah, right. No, one of.
Yeah.
What about you? Tell me about your burger preferences while we're in the middle of the Bored Ape.
Yeah, no, I agree with cheese and mustard. I would say special sauce. It doesn't have to necessarily be pure mustard. It can be like a sauce,
something tangy, though.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. To cut through that fat.
Yeah, I think onion as well for me is sort of almost mandatory.
Like raw or onion. Grilled.
Raw onion, like just some chopped onion.
Definitely not necessary to me.
Beyond that, I think that might be like ideal for me. Just those ingredients. And then,
I would rather probably a caramelized onion situation for that sweetness than the raw, because I'm already getting the bite from the mustard. This is funny. We're talking about this again. This much into it.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like raw onion.
Yeah. Well,
the Prime Minister of Australia, like a decade ago, just made headlines because he bit into an onion as if it was an apple.
My grandmother on my dad's side used to eat them like an apple. It was disgusting.
Yeah. I mean,
she was apologies to saying this about my dead grandmother, but she was a disgusting person, eating raw onions like an apple.
Yeah. I mean, the media had a circus with it when because he was already just like very easily the butt of jokes in the media, and then he goes on TV and just eats an onion. He's like,
was he at an onion farm or something? Okay, as a publicity thing. This my grandmother was not on tape. She was just, that was what she did.
Yeah.
Disgusting. Yeah. Okay, should we wrap up the segment? Bored Ape Yacht Club. Art blog and generative art in general.
And generative art in general.
That's a thing you added, right? We do that sometimes now. Yeah. The drop schedule for art blocks has changed fairly dramatically. And I think that's a good place to start. Before, it was basically there would be one curated drop a week and then short breaks between seasons, but they're slowing that down. Now there's only going to be curated drops every 2 weeks on Fridays. It used to be Mondays. And
before that used to be Fridays, though.
Yeah. And then also in terms of playground and factory drops, there used to not really be anything for a schedule except the way that the playground worked. There was some sort of inherent slowness to it just based on who was eligible. But in terms of playground, in terms of factory, they could have lots of projects coming kind of all the time. Now they're slowing it down. So including the curated, they're only going to ever do a maximum of 3 drops a week.
Yeah.
And this is something that a lot of people that were concerned about oversupply have been rooting for a long
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Because there was just so many people talking about how they're diluting themselves, their brand, their holders, and flooding the market, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Which Snowfro's general argument against was always that I'm not trying to create a market. I'm trying to improve the quality and knowledge and accessibility and all that stuff of generative art.
Mhm.
And they go hand in hand with NFTs. And the fact that they're so financialized by so many people is beyond the scope of what I'm trying to do,
Mhm.
and is not something I'm trying to maximize or look out for in any way. And so I'm sorry if it's not working out the way you want it to, but I'm
Mhm.
just trying to be an advocate for generative art on the blockchain.
Yep. It is. Yes, it is sort of interesting that they've sort of come to this position now where they're saying, we are limiting it to 6 drops every 2 weeks. I think 5 to 6 drops every 2 weeks, and one curated every 2 weeks. I think it's pretty smart decision,
Hmm.
but I'm not too fussed. Like I wasn't too fussed with the quantity that they had been releasing. Again, if we look
Yeah,
at something like FX Hash, there's infinite almost. People can drop whatever they want
right,
whenever they want, and certain collections still rise to the top, and people like them more than other ones, and it's sort of dealer's choice. You can go and decide what you like and buy it and mint it. And,
right.
um,
But there
yeah.
is sort of a sense that they're trying to do something different. They
Mm,
are trying to have a curated feed of art or whatever, a curated list of
hmm.
artists and
Yeah.
projects, whereas FX Hash is trying to do that super democratized thing.
Mm,
And so, in that sense, they're kind of only just leaning more into that differentiation,
hmm.
um, which is kind of
Yeah.
maybe wise. And there's also a sense to me that um, the curation board has been trying to curate the art for all this time, but now they've been doing it for a long time, and they've seen more of the potential output spaces, so to speak, for generative art. And so to find stuff that they still find unique,
Mm,
it can theoretically take a little bit longer, and they can
yeah.
theoretically say, we've raised the awareness of generative art, and generative art, without us, has grown enough in this time that
Mm,
we have this many more submissions, and there's more to go through to try and keep raising the bar, or keeping the bar where it
hmm.
is. Um and so we're going to just slow it down just a little bit. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense as well. Uh, I just had a thought, which was that so much of the generative art released on art blocks up until now, and even in the not too distant future, is sort of like restricted based on there's a pretty hard limit on the amount of code that someone can use because of how expensive it is to mint on Ethereum mainnet. Whereas that does not really exist on FX Hash and Tezos, and if Artblocks goes to a layer 2. So in terms of like the complexity of art, theoretically, it could be way, 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 way more complex. But I'm
Hmm.
not savvy enough about generative art to know if that's sort of how it works. Like, does more code equal better and more complex art, or is sort of like what Artblocks is releasing now, that sort of like that limit, is that like enough to do basically whatever you kind of want to do with generative art?
Yeah, I think even though I've started doing stuff, I'm only doing stuff that is much more simple than any sort of theoretical cap that Art Blocks is putting on
Mm,
the size of their projects. But it seems like it would be sort of small-minded to assume that any sort of finite amount of code that they allow is not going to be limiting in some way. If you get the best artists and best programmers to go away at it, eventually they're going to be able to find stuff that they go, oh, I would like to be able to do this, but I
mm,
can't in that much space. How far we are away from that is way beyond the scope of what I know. But it does seem like expanding that can't be a bad thing in a
mm,
theoretical sense for allowing more complexity.
yeah.
But that kind of thing, um, a lot of, in terms of getting complexity onto the actual canvas and stuff like that, I think a lot of that has to do much more so with the efficiency of the code and that kind of thing, rather than just the pure length of the algorithm in its code. But assume that you're making maximally efficient code. If you have 100 lines of it versus 200 lines of it, it seems like you're going to be able to do things with the 200 that you can't with the 100.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be an interesting year or two, I guess, as we see just generative art continue to evolve. People are figuring new stuff out, trying new techniques, and it really does seem just like the collective brain power and attention being spent on generative art is just higher than it's ever been in human history, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think that has to be true.
Yeah.
You had a sort of personal art blocks experience that you wanted to tell us about, no?
I did. I'm traveling at the moment, and a few days ago, a week ago, I think almost, we were in Berlin and went to Kraftwerks, which is a space that they had. Basically, it was a converted industrial warehouse or something, and they had a live minting experience. So Bright Moments is a company that has been doing these in conjunction with Art Blocks, these live minting experiences. It started with Crypto Venetians in LA, Venice Beach, which is basically within LA or next to LA.
I don't actually know LA geography that well.
Anyway, so it started there. They had this, I think, pretty small space where people could come, and it was over several months they were minting out, and you had to go and mint in person, and it was very cool, and people were loving it. And free mint, and these things sold for many ETH. And then they did 1K mints, and then I'm actually not sure if they maybe technically started before Venice, but anyway, the idea is they want to release a 10K PFP collection, 1K in a different city. So they did LA, they did Crypto New Yorkers, they've done Berlin, I think Vienna, or maybe Vienna's coming, and I think they're going to London soon. So I went to the Berlin one, and honestly, it was just an awesome experience. So we walked in to this massive building, so no longer this small room, which I was kind of expecting something a little smaller, but there were hundreds of people there, maybe 1,000 plus people. It was 2 or 3 stories. There was music pumping, I think generative music the entire night. There were like massive displays, like just different pieces of generative art on display, which led to some controversy actually, because
they put a portal up.
They put a portal by Jeff Davis up, of which there were only 10, and
we're only 10, right?
We're only 10. Someone walked in and saw it, and it was his portal. He owned it, and
the NFT,
and he had never been asked permission or anything like that, and so he was really upset, and he sent it to the burn address basically in protest. And that's a whole other conversation. They had asked Jeff and all the artists if it was okay to display the art, but they hadn't reached out to the individual owners. Anyway, we don't need to get into all that, but yeah, it was.
It is an interesting discussion, though. But
is.
You can continue your story first, at least.
Yeah, it was me, Rachel's mom. All 3 of us were there. We minted Crypto Berliners, which was they had these iPads set up. You go in, you scan a QR code that you redeemed an NFT online previously, and they gave you a QR code that you take in, and you click a mint button, and then reveals. Actually, no, the reveal is different. It's separate. Sorry. You click the mint button, and it tells you what number you get. So I was like, you get 520, 521, and then you sort of walk into another room, and it had this massive like projector set up against a wall, and then you walk up, and there's music playing, and the reveal everyone's NFT. And it's really cool reveal experience. That was awesome.
I used to see a lot of videos on Twitter of that. I believe it was still the Venetians that we saw, including the one that Bob Iger did. I remember that video specifically.
Yeah, that was very, very popular. So that was awesome. And then we went and also minted. So each night they had an event at Kraftwerks. They had a different generative artist like in the spotlight who was releasing a limited collection. And so the night we were there was Jason Ting, who released the Bubble Blobby collection on Art Blocks, as well as a few others, Light Beams. And he had a collection called
Transitions, Lux. Maybe I think he might have been part of.
Yep, he did Transitions. I think in collaboration with someone else. I can't remember.
Yes.
Off the top of my head. And I think he had another Playground drop. Anyway, so he released a collection called Lux, of which there were only 100, and we got to mint again in person this time.
And so now, what was? Sorry to interrupt, but is this an Art Blocks drop, or is it just?
Good question.
You don't even know?
I don't even know.
Okay. Checking your wallet?
I'll have to, check my wallet. I haven't actually checked that they even sent it to me in my wallet. I'm assuming that they did. But because we got to see it, like as soon as we minted, it popped up on the iPad, as well as it had like a whole screen set up and you got to see it. It was just a really cool experience. Yeah. And he had a show that night as well where there were a bunch of, pretty sure they were like test mints because everyone had to mint that night, but like a bunch of test mints were on screens everywhere and there was music playing, generative music playing. And it was just a really cool vibe being
that sounds cool.
Surrounded by so much generative music and art and people. Like just
generative
so many
people
were there. Well, the crypto Berliners were generative people, PFPs, but yeah, there were just so many people there that were like having fun, excited by this space that was about generative art.
Did you talk to enough people to get a sense of how many people went there because they know art blocks versus how many were kind of just looking for something to do? Like, give me a sense of that.
I did not talk to enough people. I barely talked to anyone aside from a few of the art blocks people that we met there. But they were also selling like general admission tickets as just like an event going on in Berlin that night for anyone interested in art. And there were certainly enough people that never. They
would have to be based on we know how many wallets hold art blocks NFTs.
I specifically remember like we were going up to the place to mint and like there was like the person was there like asking us, "Are you here for minting?" And we were like, yes we are. And I heard someone behind me going, "What's minting?" So yeah,
that's fun.
That was cool. There was another really cool.
So like this Lux drop that there was 100 of, was that a raffle auction? Was there a price at all? How first come, first serve?
Kind of first come, first serve. So you had to buy in advance as well. They sold tickets. Basically, they announced who the artists were for the, I think, 10 days of the event. And you could go and buy one for each of them or multiple for each. And so the 0.5 ETH per ticket. And I just bought 3, one for me, one for Rachel, one for her mum. I think there were like 30 left out of the 100 when I went and bought. I bought earlier that day, and some of the other artists had already sold out. Casey Rias was there. He was actually giving a talk the night after we were there, and we had plans, so we couldn't go and see it, but I would have loved to have attended that. There you go. Casey Rias.
You just said there you go, but there's people that are not watching that have no idea what happened.
I said Siri just opened up on my laptop because I said Casey Rias.
And somehow she heard her name.
Somehow she heard her name.
She's so egotistical, that Siri.
I know. Just an awesome night and experience, and made me very, very bullish on generative art in general. There's one other thing that we got to experience is that they had like this special room where they had a showing of rituals. The Aaron Penne and Beretta, I think, is the audio artist who created the generative music for that. And they just had this huge screen, and even more important than that, these giant speakers. Like this was, I didn't even know how to explain the room. It was just like this.
I had actually seen pictures on Twitter of this room before. I think it was probably one in New York. Doing the same thing, and it looked like powerful.
It was incredible. There were only like 15 of us in the room, and for about 10 to 15 minutes, it was just like different rituals cycling through with this music, just power, like just thundering in the room. Really made me appreciate them a lot more. I already really liked them. Rachel was not a huge fan of them before, and she came out going like, "Those are awesome. Those are really, really cool." So that was fun.
That sounds awesome.
Cool. In-person generative art is cool. The day after, or a couple of days after, I actually met up with Deep Oakman and Dirtus from the Upblocks Discord, both community leaders, and Debugman's girlfriend was there as well, and we just hung out and had a drink, and it was just cool to meet them and chat. And yeah, they're great people. Yep.
And we have a curated drop coming up this Friday, right?
We do. Anti-Cyclone by William Mapen.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm sorry. William Tan is
Scribble Boundaries.
Scribble Boundaries, yeah.
William Mapen. You were saying is an FX Hash artist as well?
Yeah, so he has a pretty popular project on FX Hash called Dragons that some of our listeners are probably familiar with, and we can link in the show notes as well so people can check that out. But that's a thing that's been happening a lot lately that I love to see, is when the FX Hash community has this artist that they really like that kind of gets to go onto the sort of, in quotes, bigger stage of art blocks. And it's just they get excited, and you get to kind of see that crossover between the F community and the TES community, the FX Hash community and the art blocks community. So yeah, this is a person who's established on FX Hash and has a project that a lot of people like, and now he's getting a curated drop. Have you looked at it at all?
I've looked at the curated drop, which is Anti-Cyclone. I'm actually looking at Dragons right now on FX Hash. The floor is...
It's fairly different.
Yeah, they're very different collections. Floor of Dragons is 1,000 ETH. 1,000
wow. I think the Portals floor, by the way, was like 1,000 for a second.
It was, yeah. I really like Anti-Cyclone. I mean, I say that.
You do say that a lot.
Basically every curated drop, and I'm not.
Yeah,
lying.
yeah.
I really like them.
You back it up with your ETH.
Yeah. What do you think?
I haven't looked at it a ton, but I definitely do like the look of it, and I like it more than Dragons. Dragons doesn't do a ton for me, although to be fair, I have not looked at a ton of the outputs of it. But this looks more to my liking.
I'm gonna share my screen.
Roy's doing a little share screen. Yeah, so here's the test outputs for the curated drop.
Anti-Cyclone, which I think look... I mean, I love the ones where they're all like together, like a whole pattern. The ones where they're a little, let's see, mismatched, like down here, this green one, I'm not as big a fan of. And these seem to be the more common ones. But
right. Yeah. Now that I'm doing the generative art, it's in P5JS. I mean, I'm so new at it still, but any of these just not straight forms are so difficult for me still to do. Like, I can do ellipses obviously quite easily, but in terms of just doing like curves, it's such a pain in the ass, and trying to do something like this is mind-boggling to me right now. I'm sure it's actually to some degree like not actually that difficult once you're more proficient, but I can't even conceptualize how these people are doing these things yet, because I'm still so bad at P5JS. Yeah, so here's Dragons.
This is Dragons,
which looks appreciably different. Like, you almost can't tell that it's the same artist, right? Unless you're told that ahead of time.
Yeah, and to me, these they look good, but there's not a lot of diversity. I would say
they look quite similar,
except for this one. Yeah, 41 is very different. Anyway, I'm gonna stop sharing to save the audio listeners.
Yeah.
So that's dropping on Friday, which is in 2 days.
We're recording here on a Wednesday.
And do you know the collection size?
I don't, but the last drop that happened was at 500, which is basically the first time that a drop had been not 1,000 plus minutes in a long time. So that is relevant. I don't know off the top of my head.
I just checked.
Okay, this one's going to be 800.
Yeah, the last one didn't sell out for a while.
It took about 30 hours maybe, or something like that, maybe less, but it was under 2 days, but well over the hour or whatever that most curated drops have always sold out in. Yeah,
which is...
and also notable that, again, it was 500 pieces, which is half the size of most drops. It was it's one of these ones. It's animated and has audio. So if you're just looking at the thumbnails of it, you're not even close to getting the full art. So it takes a lot of effort from the potential buyers to actually know what you're going to get, and so it makes it harder to just open the page, go, that's what it looks like, I'm not minting that. Whereas if you go to the live view, it's like there's a lot more going on that might entice you to mint if you had the time. But it's, again, I've talked about this before, but like if you just opened up Fidenza or Ringer, you're getting the whole thing here, and you can tell immediately how much you like it. Whereas something like Phase or this project that just dropped, you have to put in a lot more active effort. Or Pigments is another one. Although again, Pigments is closer when you're seeing the still to being the full thing. It's definitely not the same. So those ones I feel like can sometimes, if the market is just not really hot at the time, have a lot harder of a time getting minted out and having a thorough secondary market, because it takes so much more investigation to see on OpenSea. Okay, OpenSea is showing me this, but in order to see what it really is, it takes a lot more effort.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I want to ask, how many Pigments do you own? Because you were fascinated by them for ages.
Yeah,
and
I have
quite cheap now.
3. I'm just double checking. Yes, I have 3.
Yeah. The floor is 1.25, which seems, it seems
amazing.
really cheap, but
yeah,
who knows with this. So Snowfurry had made an interesting comment in Discord the other day, basically saying, I honestly believe that generative art would be a common language in our society in the next few years. I used to joke, in quotation marks, about IKEA posters in 5 years. I really think this is coming much, much sooner than you think, which
I saw that.
It sounds exciting. It sounds excellent for generative art in general in the world. I had never thought of the idea of IKEA posters, but it makes total sense now. Imagine going to IKEA and like everyone gets the same poster now. They have this art that, imagine you can just go to a machine, click a button, and you get unique art.
Yeah.
That's, you have some idea of what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of to have like a version of that that's a little bit more sort of high end and less mass appeal, but more directly to art. Like the print shops could kind of directly connect into this stuff and do high end art prints that are sort of directly minted there, so to speak. That would be a really interesting thing to see.
Yeah, it's interesting that this hasn't happened before, because it's not like generative art has not needed the blockchain to exist for, like, you could have created an algorithm that could spit out unique generative art and sell it at IKEA or print shop previously. But I guess maybe no one cared enough about generative art to be like, oh, that's a cool idea. And now that's because Nofa is
very, very few people cared about it before, and still, relatively speaking, very few people care about it. Right? It's a lot more than probably ever have cared about it, but it's still it's still small. I mean, honestly, if you want to just talk about visual art in general, that's still something that maybe 80% of the population really does not give a fuck about at all.
This is true, actually.
Never mind generative art, which is this tiny, tiny subsection of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It really seems to be shifting, though, which is, again, like probably just a perception from within the bubble that I'm in. But yeah, it's certainly shifting for me and those around me. So but
in terms of the wider world, it's still just, it's a niche of a niche.
Yeah. I've been having thoughts about wanting to get like some of the OG generative art prints that you were talking about wanting to get.
Yes. And then got quoted a ridiculous price from the gallery that owned the stuff. And so I did not do it.
I think that would be really cool to own some of them.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is pen plotter art, because that was one of the most, if not the most common way to make it into something physical.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some researching and investigating and putting some bids out and figuring. I also really want to get. So I'm in Paris at the moment, and like we went to a couple of really old bookstores, and they had like these old books, and I was trying to find like an old version of Meditations or letters from
I have a French version that I got in Paris.
Damn, how old is it?
Not old at all.
Yeah. I mean, I got a version right here as well. But even though I have like multiple copies, I just was in a bookstore and I was like, I want to buy books, and bought a bunch of books.
That's often how I feel when I'm in a bookstore.
Yeah.
I actually just bought I just bought a book of Solowitz art, who's another one of these sort of pioneers of generative stuff.
Yeah.
Whose art you might be able to buy a piece of soon.
Ooh,
now that you're thinking about doing this.
That would be cool. I've been hearing his name pop up more and more lately. People are really loving and respecting him. I mean, I'm sure they always have been, but I'm noticing
right
more. Yeah.
Now you're aware of it.
Yeah. He has this an artwork drop. Well, not he, but Mitchell F. Chan has a drop inspired by or in homage, or I don't know, whatever, called the Generative.
Both of those would be accurate, I think.
Yeah, which I think are very cool.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I did in P5JS was to do a Solowit wall drawing, I believe is what he called them.
The second from the floor one, last sold for 4.5 ETH, is now for sale at 0.49.
That's like
some of these. Yeah.
That's pretty standard for art blocks these days.
Yeah. I saw a really amazing, yesterday I was actually looking at the subscapes. The literal floor subscape is for sale, I think, for like 6 or 7 ETH. I looked at I almost bought it because I looked at the provenance. I sold it for, I think, 0.5678 ETH like 9 months ago. It was then sold for 1 ETH. It was then sold for 6 ETH. A month later or a few weeks later, it was sold for 60 ETH. And now it's for sale back at 7.
60, wow.
There might have been a 30 in between and then 60. But anyway,
yeah.
It was just a ton of sales. And then now it's come back down and I had it. But I don't love it. Like
I think we'll probably see some of that with like geometry runners eventually, where you go, that one sold for 40 and now it's listed for 1, like pretty soon.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that's already happening.
Yeah, well, I assume that the ones that really sold for the most, people are just holding on a little bit longer and stuff. And at last I checked, the floor was still around 1. I think the floor will have to get down to like, 0.5 before the grail.
0.69 at the moment.
Yeah, it was 1 recently-ish.
Yeah. That was like the peak.
That was when the euphoria was just maximum.
Yeah. Dutch auction sold out at 5 ETH. Immediately the floor is 15. Yeah.
Amazing.
Should we talk about, is there anything else, or should we wrap up this section? We've been talking for a while.
Yeah, I think we've covered all the things that we have listed. Art blocks. Our project. Roy, something terrible happened.
Something terrible did happen.
Or bad. I don't want to be dramatic, but it was definitely bad.
It was definitely bad.
Why don't you just go ahead and tell us?
So I'm on vacation, as I've mentioned a few times. And
holiday.
The 333 Club Discord was hacked, basically. A few days ago, it happened at a very inopportune time, but it could have been worse. I could have been asleep. It happened just as like we were getting into an Uber, heading to a boat cruise that was like on the river, and like terrible internet reception and stuff. But I'll run through what happened basically. So one of the members of my team had their Discord account compromised, basically, and so his account was DMing other mods in ZenAcademy and was saying like, "Hey, join this server with instructions like drag a bookmark to the URL bar," and the mods in ZenAcademy were like, "Hey, it looks suspicious. We think their account has been hacked." And I was like, that does look suspicious, and I sent out an announcement warning everyone in the community, saying basically, we believe this person's account has been hacked. Be careful. Do not click on links and all that kind of stuff. And also alerted the mods and tried to get in touch with them on Twitter, and they said yes, their account has been compromised and stuff like that. And so that was sort of the extent of it at the moment. We're like, all right, so this hacker has been trying to use their account to hack reach out to other people and I guess get more of a footing in or something like that. And then like 20 minutes later, I looked down at my phone and it was blowing up and like infinite DMs and messages saying 333 just got hacked. Basically, what happened was that this person had, I guess, additional permissions in the 333, and the hacker using their account had installed webhooks, had added new accounts with like admin permissions, and was basically posting announcements to a malicious link site, pretending to be me, saying there's a mint, a limited edition. There's only 250 of them, so we have 333 members. So mint now, or you're going to miss out. All the traditional FOMO-inducing tactics,
right?
And that they kicked and banned a bunch of the existing mods and members, and they were deleting channels, and it was just chaotic for a little while. And I was on my phone trying to figure it out. I was like, holy crap! I had
with bad internet people on a riverboat.
Yeah, thankfully that was like towards the very end. I was in an Uber for most of it. I was like, thankfully we have a team chat on WhatsApp. So because people thought my account might have been hacked as well. They were like, can we trust Zeneca on Discord? And it was like, thankfully we had this WhatsApp avenue of communication. I was talking to my team and unbanning people, getting them in, trying to kick the accounts that were, but like they just kept coming back in, and like we couldn't figure it out. And so we fortunately got in touch with someone who's like a Discord security expert who had helped other servers out in times like this.
Can I pause for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Discord security expert meaning Discord employee who works in security? Okay, just somebody who knows it.
Employee.
Okay.
Yeah. So someone who's worked with other servers that have been hacked and knows best practices. And he jumped on a voice video call with one of my team members, Mushroom, and then this person was like, give me admin permissions, I will fix it for you. And then we were like, well, can we trust him? He'd been recommended by multiple people and was sharing his screen the entire time. So like Mushroom could see what was happening. And then he basically locked it down. He like found the logs and traced it back to where the leak was and booted everyone, and we got the server locked down. Unfortunate thing is that a few people in the 333 did click and mint and then had some assets stolen. A mutant was stolen, 2 cool cats, a couple of Neo Tokyo out of identity things, and some Voxelville. I think that's the NFT. And it was just really unfortunate, crazy, chaotic, saddening. So we're still in sort of the aftermath of it all and figuring out the extent of the assets stolen. We've pretty much identified how it happened and now what we can do going forward to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Basically, I think I had given too many permissions to someone because they wanted to use, like, I'm pretty sure it happened when I was in a meeting on a call doing something, and they were trying to get a bot to work to record like a video AMA sessions or something in the Discord, and they were like, hey, I don't have permissions, and I just like quickly, I think I gave them admin permissions, like, all right, I'll do this now, I'll get rid of them later or something like that. Never got around to getting rid of it. And then secondary to that, they didn't have that level of education to know not to drag something to their bookmark bar. Like, I know not to do that, and most of the mods do that. But
guess I know not to do it because it sounds so weird, but it's not actually a thing that I feel I've heard about before.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be something that, is something I know not to do by direct knowledge of hearing, hey, this is a tactic, but it's just, why can't I just click the link? Why do I need to drag it? That would just put up, alarms to me. But I never actually heard of that as being a component of these.
That's one of the ways they get you to do it. The other one is to like ask you to share your screen. That's something you should never do.
Right.
But yeah,
I think. Speaking of which, I'm sorry, this is going to get us off topic a little bit, but I didn't know what you were doing. Sorry to the listeners. Have you heard about the Bryn Kenny stuff? I know you're way out of the poker scene now, but it is so crazy.
Someone in the group chat mention it? Because I remember someone brought
it's been talked about a little bit in the group chat. It is nuts.
What happened?
Well, let me just at the start go. This is all alleged. This is all stuff that I've heard and read. Okay, so don't fucking sue me, Bryn. You fucking anyway. Basically, it sounds like he's been running basically the largest cheating operation in all of like poker history, aside from direct super user stuff, which we've also had in online poker. But we're talking about ghosting plus multi-accounting, plus real-time assist software, all of these things that you're not supposed to do, plus like social engineering stuff where like he was there's this rich fish, Lauren Roberts, who he was acting like he's super good friends with. And then would always force all of his horses to play whenever she was playing, but then would also use her account and play for her sometimes. And then there's also like a bunch of weird cult stuff where he's like forcing people to do lots of drugs, go to see shamans who are injecting them with frog poisons.
What?
Like super, super crazy stuff. A lot of juicy stuff. And now he's like doing various interviews where he's trying to sort of clear his name, and he's doing such a poor job of it. He did a Poker News one that was like, why do you think that that's going to help your argument? So it was super crazy stuff. Yeah, I almost wish I was still more in the poker scene so I could be more seeped in it, because it's so juicy and titillating.
Yeah. Damn. Is this the same person? I remember on the podcast, I don't know, 8 episodes ago, you mentioned that it might have been Bryn who was like alleges he doesn't use these like game theory.
Yeah. So he's the all-time money winner for live tournament caches, or money casher, I should say, maybe not winner. And had claimed for the longest time that he doesn't use Pio Solver or any of that stuff, and doesn't even really have a discussion group who he talks strategy with. It's all just in his own head, and it seems like that was probably a lot of bullshit. Considering all the other stuff that's now coming out too. And certainly it sounds like his online results were much less legitimate. Who knows what was happening in live poker, and this was shortly on the heels of like some much more mild stuff from this Ali in Servich or something, high roller guy. Anyway, we're getting way off topic here.
We were talking about what were we talking about? The 333 hack. Very unfortunate that it happened. Somewhat fortunate that because of the way that ZenAcademy was locked down and the permissions, we had been actively working over the last few weeks to ensure that like we were proactive about a hack attempt like this, so that if someone's account was compromised, the damage could be mitigated. Basically, nothing happened in ZenAcademy. A lot of people weren't even aware of it, other than the fact that we announced that it had happened or was happening. Damage, I think, would have been catastrophically worse if ZenAcademy Discord was hacked.
So a lot more people, and in theory, less sophistication per person.
Pretty much, yeah. We're now in the process of sort of like tracking the wallets that stole the assets, and I got Zach XBT involved, who is just like the best basically at doing
blockchain sleuth.
Yeah, within like 12 hours, he had this massive web where he tracked all of these different wallets, and like
I actually saw him tweet that.
And then I think he's still doing some additional work to try and get to the bottom of it more, and we're going to see if we can go to the authorities or do something more to if we can trace these to like a Coinbase account, which I think we might be able to, which requires KYC.
Or Binance maybe.
Yeah. So there's that. I mean, it's terrible that it happened, but trying to focus on the positives and just moving forward, what we can learn to implement better practices going forward. All that kind of stuff.
It seems like there was kind of two errors here, right? Is the you not removing the admin permissions from them after forgetting to do that, and them just not having the general awareness to not have done the thing that got their account hacked. And then once those two were in place, you got another one though?
I got a sort of a third one, which is probably not enough education or just like fire drills for the community saying, I will never have a stealth drop like this.
Right.
Just make sure obviously most people are aware of that, but not everyone. So I think just maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, we should announce both in ZenAcademy and 333, beware if this ends up happening, worst case scenario, et cetera. We will never do that. We will always announce that's, all that kind of stuff.
It seems almost crazy at this point for like anybody to actually do stealth mints. Like, why are you doing that? I guess you can make some weird arguments where it's okay, but it just let's discourage people from ever thinking that that's anything but a scam. Is probably the best course of action for everybody.
I think so. Yeah.
aside from the scammers, but we don't need to look out for them.
Yeah. No, we
because
don't.
They suck.
Yeah, pretty much. So that was like a lot of excitement in the not most ideal way for the 333 Club. Aside from that, things are going well like there and in ZenAcademy. Like we released a new logo. We're planning NFT NYC and MET Amsterdam.
What Amsterdam?
MET. That is like, I don't know what it stands for, but there's an event in Amsterdam.
Okay, I haven't heard of that.
If you want to come, you should come. Hop on over. Come to Amsterdam just before.
When is it?
NYC.
I have a bunch of shit coming up.
June 14th, 17th.
And then NFT NYC is shortly after that, you're saying?
Yeah, it's like 20th to 23rd. So, yeah. You should come. It's going to be fun. Rachel will be there. A couple other ZenAcademy team members will be there and a bunch of...
I will look at my calendar.
Amazing. Yeah, we're going to do some merch, I think, at one of the two events, which is fun and exciting. We have a new website coming out soon. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff happening. My course with ZenAcademy is going pretty well.
I've seen some people saying they took it and giving good reviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that it's received so well, which maybe I shouldn't be, but I was expecting.
You had some sort of imposter syndrome or something, you feel?
I guess so. Yeah. I honestly thought it was like whatever. But yeah, now I'm talking to them about doing another one. I'm probably going to fly out to Dubai end of May, early June to shoot one or two more, and yeah.
Do you know about what, or is it a secret, or?
It's not a secret. It's sort of so the way the first course was decided was I sent out a survey and feedback, and so we did the same thing for this one just to see what people are interested in learning about. But I have sort of two ideas. One is community building. I think like a lot of people and projects are interested in that. Like launching a project is one thing, but then how do you actually build a community and what goes into building a community and stuff like that. And the other thing is evaluating projects from sort of an investor's point of view or buyers or that.
Right. Which you could use
a lot of people.
NFT Go, that would probably be a very helpful tool to do that, right?
Boom. There you go. Yes. We love NFT Go. And
we do.
There's so much data and information there. And those are the two ideas for the courses, but who knows what I'll end up doing. Yeah, that's it for ZenAcademy and 333 Club. What's going on with you, Jamie, in generative art, P5JS?
Well, I haven't done much since the last time we talked, just because I was in Nashville for 4 or 5 days. Never been there before. I wrote a bull, which I'd never done before.
Bull. Sounded like you said bowl.
Nope, like bull. Well, mechanical bull, not a real bull.
Mechanical. How'd that go?
I thought I did pretty well, but I had a huge bruise on the inside of my thigh the next day. I still have it. But it was fun.
I saw the video of you doing it, and then I was like, "This is fun. I think I would like to do that." And then I saw the bruise, and I was like, "I don't think I want to do that."
I don't even know really how that happened. I mean, I guess I was squeezing hard, and at one point, I kind of bounced me up and then back onto it or something like that. But I could definitely feel immediately after there was like a little bit of an abrasion and like a soreness. I didn't expect to have that thorough of a bruise the next day, though. We were there because Kayla was running the half marathon. And then we just kind of decided to turn it into a fun trip on top of that with some of our friends. So that was fun. But I did get this new book. I'm gonna show it to our screen here.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Getting Started with P5JS, and it's written by the person who created P5JS, and then the sub-authors are Casey Reyes and Ben Fry, who are the people that made processing, which is basically what P5JS is built sort of on top of or as a next version of, so to speak. And so I was just kind of reading that on the plane, so that way I would be, even though I couldn't actually be doing stuff because I was on vacation, I was still kind of getting my mind right about learning stuff. What are you smirking at?
I'm just remembering at some point during your trip, you were like, I can't wait to get home. I miss Toby, my dog. I miss gardening. I miss, programming P5JS. And I miss vegetables.
Yeah, I miss eating vegetables, as I said, because all of the food there was just pub food, fried food,
Yeah.
meats and breads and stuff. There's just, I think I had a tiny bit of arugula one of the days, and that was
Yeah.
about it. I think I had coleslaw on a sandwich somewhere. That was it. Yeah. But I've just, I don't want to say the same thing I've been saying every time, but I've been having a lot of fun doing this, and I'd be happy for people to, follow me on Instagram and Twitter to see what I've been posting as my sort of works in progress as I'm learning P5JS. And I've been having questions about what my plan is as far as minting stuff. And I am sort of curious what people think. So these days in generative art, is so common to do what I think Tyler Hobbs came up with a name for it, but this long form generative stuff where basically you have the algorithm and then you kind of just post the algorithm to the blockchain and people mint from it. And what it is what it is. And that's much more popular these days, but I'm kind of thinking that I'm not sure that I want to do that, because I do like the idea of you make the algorithm and you kind of just use it a bunch, and then you get to do self curation basically, and just kind of pick your favorite outputs and mint those. So I'm not sure which of those two avenues I'm more interested in right now. But I think I'm might just do very sort of a small project or very small projects on FX Hash, which would sort of be that long form thing. And then maybe on the F blockchain to mint some one of ones that I curate more heavily. But I don't really know yet. I feel like I'm still so much learning and not really ready to mint it, even though people are talking as if, they'd be happy to pay money for some of the stuff I've been showing on Twitter and stuff.
That's so exciting.
It's really quite fun. And I've been trying to sort of stretch my abilities by, like, the other day I was like, well, let me just try and do P5JS code to make as realistic as possible of a pineapple. Because I had seen a thing where Tyler Hobbs did a blog post where he did basically a texture study of basically just grass, a bunch of kind of dried long grasses that he took a picture of in Texas. And I thought it was really interesting how he's sort of trying to capture reality with generative code. So I was like, let me try doing that rather than kind of just doing more of the, so to speak, same geometric abstracting stuff that I'd done. But the thing I'm really trying to do right now is learn about classes. And this is where I'm going to lose everybody because only a couple of the listeners, but, within the program, there's something called classes, which is a way of doing object-oriented programming, which I want to just stop talking because I know I'm boring people, but it's going to be a way for me to really be able to do more complex stuff without having to redo code over and over and stuff like that.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I tried to cut it off when I was getting too technical and boring.
Yeah. No, but I mean, overall, it is super exciting. Just like you've been such a fan of generative art for a year, and now you're creating generative art. It's just
right,
it's cool
and getting a way deeper appreciation of the stuff that I had been buying and admiring, because now I know sort of what goes into it. And there is other stuff that is, I'm now realizing how simple it is, but I also don't care because I care truly in the end about the output. And so if it looks good to me, if it looks like good art, it doesn't matter to me necessarily if it took 10 lines of smart code as opposed to, pages and pages of stuff to make something that's more complicated or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're making art. You're making art, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do needlessly complex stuff to make something that you like. Maybe if you're trying to push all of art forward in some sort of egotistical or whatever type way, you need to do something more than make something that looks nice or whatever. But that seems like a pretty heady goal that is not exactly where I'm at.
Yeah.
I think this is where we're wrapping up here.
Why not? Should we play? What am I thinking?
We can. Well, we should also thank NFT Go again, I think.
Thank you, NFT Go.
And encourage our listeners to check it out.
Yes.
We were supposed to pull it up during the Moonbird segment, and I forgot.
We will
not the Moonbird
we'll
segment, the news of the week. Yeah. We're gonna put a little thing at the beginning that the listeners have already heard now because this is the end.
This is the end.
This is the end of the episode. All right, yeah. So you want to do?
Yeah.
What am I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me think of a word here.
Okay.
Okay, I got a word.
Okay, me too.
3, 2, 1. Marathon. Marathon and croissant.
All right. I got
3,
really good one.
2, 1. Calorie.
Carbohydrates.
Calorie and carbohydrate. 3, 2, 1. Nutrition.
Protein.
Protein and nutrition. We're doing the thing that we do where we circle.
We're circling.
Nutrition and protein. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Diet.
Exercise.
Diet and exercise. Diet and exercise. Okay. Ready?
Yes.
Two words. I gotta pick one of them. 3, 2, 1. Fitness.
Weight loss.
Fitness and weight loss. Fitness and weight loss. All right, I guess I'll just do the other one that I was thinking.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Health.
Healthy.
I think we call that.
I think we get that.
Healthy and health.
That.
All right.
Yeah.
Good job.
Right.
Good job, Les. That was slower than we've been doing it lately.
Yeah.
That was more like one of the old ones. I know.
Yeah. I almost thought we were going to get it in two, right, with carbohydrates and calories.
Yeah, we were pretty close there. This has been episode 41. Thanks for listening. Thanks to NFT Go for sponsoring us. Do be a good person, right? We always want to say that.
Do good things.
Don't
follow us.
Oh, here's another thing I want to say. If you are buying Elon Musk's current shtick about him being a huge advocate for the First Amendment, like, I'm sorry, but you are stupid, because there's so much evidence that he is absolutely not that. Roy, what did you just
almost
do?
Broke my table.
Right.
Meanwhile,
Right,
you're just
get a face.
half our listeners.
No, well, if half of our listeners think that, but he's well documented to absolutely not do this. And it's amazing to me that people are buying. I'm not thinking that Twitter is going to immediately go down the toilet just if he buys it, but don't just think that he loves the free speech more than anybody in the whole world just because he's saying it. Look at all the things that he's done that completely fly in the face of that. So stupid.
Yeah. Great way to end.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff. Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff.